India's ambition to position itself as the leader of the global south has been a prominent narrative in recent years, as it seeks to counter China's growing influence in developing nations. This rivalry, while rooted in historical, economic, and geopolitical contexts, underscores deeper questions about what it means to lead the global south and whether either country is genuinely prepared to take on this mantle. India's aspirations to be the voice of developing nations are not unfounded. Historically, India has aligned itself with the struggles of countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, emphasizing solidarity against colonialism and imperialism. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru championed the causes of anti-imperialism and non-alignment, creating a legacy of leadership among nations that share a colonial past. Today, India builds on this legacy, positioning itself as a beacon of democracy, cultural richness, and shared heritage with other developing nations. The Voice of the Global South summits hosted by India are examples of its proactive approach to engaging with these nations and creating a platform for collective dialogue. However, beneath the surface of these aspirations lie significant challenges. India continues to grapple with widespread poverty, with nearly 10% of its population living below the poverty line and millions surviving on less than $2 a day. Basic healthcare, education, and sanitation remain inaccessible to large sections of its population, raising questions about its ability to lead others while struggling with these internal shortcomings. Infrastructure development, often touted as a hallmark of progress, reveals another glaring gap. Roads, railways, and public utilities are frequently delayed or fail to meet global standards, highlighting inefficiencies in project execution and management. These domestic issues present a stark contrast to India's aspirations on the global stage and complicate its narrative of leadership. Economically, India faces further constraints. While its economy is one of the fastest growing in the world, it still lacks the financial resources to rival China's expansive investments in the global south. China, with its vast foreign reserves and strategic foresight, has outpaced India in offering developmental assistance and infrastructure support to developing nations. The Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, is a testament to China's dominance in this regard. Through this ambitious project, China has financed roads, railways, ports, and energy projects in over 140 countries. While critics argue that some nations have fallen into debt traps due to these investments, others point to tangible benefits, including job creation, enhanced connectivity, and economic growth. In contrast, India's contributions, though impactful in pockets, pale in comparison to the scale and speed of China's projects. The rivalry between India and China also extends to their geopolitical strategies. India has deliberately excluded China from its Global South summits, emphasizing its desire to lead the developing world without Beijing's influence. This exclusionary approach reflects India's underlying competition with China, as it seeks to present itself as a more inclusive and democratic alternative. However, this strategy has its limitations. By sidelining China, India risks creating divisions within the global south, a collective of nations that would benefit more from unity and collaboration than rivalry. Moreover, India's criticism of China's BRI as a debt trap is often seen as a deflection from its own inability to match the scale of China's infrastructural investments. While China's approach to leadership in the global south is often criticized as transactional, it has undeniably produced results. China has developed strong economic ties with countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, becoming their largest trading partner in many cases. Its investments in infrastructure have transformed local economies, creating jobs and improving trade networks. Unlike India, which emphasizes its democratic ethos, China focuses on mutual benefits without imposing political ideologies, making it a more appealing partner for authoritarian regimes and nations prioritizing economic gains over political alignment. This rivalry between India and China risks fracturing the global south, undermining its collective voice on the global stage. The developing world is not a monolithic entity. It comprises diverse nations with varying needs and aspirations. Leadership, therefore, should not be a zero-sum game. Instead of competing for dominance, India and China have an opportunity to collaborate for the greater good. Both nations share a history of colonial exploitation and underdevelopment, and their combined efforts could create a stronger, more unified global south. India's democratic values and cultural diplomacy could complement China's financial and infrastructural expertise, creating a balanced approach to addressing the challenges faced by developing nations. Climate change is another area where India and China could collaborate. As two of the world's largest carbon emitters, they have a shared responsibility to lead sustainable development initiatives. By working together, they could create innovative solutions to combat climate change while setting an example for other nations. However, this potential for collaboration is often overshadowed by their geopolitical tensions. Border disputes between India and China, particularly in the Himalayas, have strained relations and fueled their competition for influence in the global south. These tensions are further exacerbated by India's domestic politics. Increasing authoritarian tendencies, suppression of dissent, and rising communal tensions within India have dented its democratic image. For a country positioning itself as a beacon of democracy, these issues weaken its credibility on the global stage. India's ability to lead the global south also depends on its capacity to address its internal challenges. Strengthening its socio-economic fabric, improving infrastructure, and expanding access to basic services are essential steps toward building credibility. Economically, India needs to scale up its investments in developmental aid and infrastructure projects to compete with China effectively. Diplomatically, India must adopt a more inclusive approach, focusing on multilateralism and strategic partnerships rather than rivalry. Expanding partnerships beyond traditional allies and fostering dialogue with China could strengthen India's role in global governance. Instead of viewing leadership as a competition, India should embrace collaboration as the cornerstone of its approach to the global south. China, on the other hand, must address concerns about the sustainability and fairness of its investments. While the BRI has produced significant outcomes, allegations of debt traps and lack of transparency have tarnished its reputation. Adopting a more collaborative and inclusive approach could enhance China's role in the global south. For both nations, the path to leadership lies not in outmaneuvering each other, but in working together to uplift developing nations. The global south requires unity and shared goals, not divisions driven by rivalry. Leadership is not about dominance. It is about creating a collective framework for development, sustainability, and shared prosperity. The rivalry between India and China is as much about their domestic ambitions as it is about their roles on the global stage. India seeks to assert itself as a rising power, using the global south as a platform to showcase its potential. China, with its established economic might, views the global south as a crucial element of its broader geopolitical strategy. While their approaches differ, their ultimate goal is the same: to shape the future of the developing world. This competition, however, should not overshadow the larger objective of the global south. Developing nations need unity, cooperation, and shared resources to address common challenges. Divisions driven by rivalry only weaken their collective voice, reducing their influence in global forums like the United Nations, World Trade Organization, and COP conferences. The road ahead for India and China requires a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing each other as adversaries, they must recognize the potential for partnership. The challenges facing the global south are too vast for any one country to tackle alone. By pooling their resources and expertise, India and China could create a new model of leadership based on collaboration and mutual respect. Whether they choose to compete or cooperate will determine the future of the global south and their roles within it. In the end, leadership is not about who takes the crown, but about who delivers results. The global south needs leaders who prioritize development over dominance, unity over division, and cooperation over competition. India and China have the potential to be these leaders, but only if they set aside their differences and work together for the greater good. Until then, the idea of either nation leading the global south remains an aspiration rather than a reality.